Hey there, it's Chris. Welcome back to the Kai Shulin Project, where this time we have a lot of very exciting things going on in this session. And we have a number of things we need to get done, because it's hardening day. Finally, this stuff that we see down here, yeah, it is time to actually cast this in stone, so to speak. But before that, we have a couple things we need to get done. So first off, let's get our regular setup kind of going over here, just so we have some semblance of what's going on. And basically there are 4 different things I would like to get done in this session today. First thing is, although I did some cleanup on a number of the details beforehand, and I even added the straps finally onto the shoes, so they are done. What I haven't done is I haven't fixed the treads on the bottom of the foot here. You can see now we have my hardening base I've now kind of set up. We have space between, so I'm no longer sitting on that, so we can fix the treads on this one, and I can add the treads to that shoe. That's kind of the only building thing being done today. That should take maybe 10 minutes and that'll be done. After that, part 2 is we need to prep this top part, because again, our master plan is we want to separate from here up, so the legs will be one piece in the end. This top will be a separate piece we can take on and off. So we have some prep work to do on that, and we have one of 2 directions we can go. Either I can shave everything a little skinnier, so then I can harden this whole thing, and then put a thin layer of clay back on top to then match where the skin kind of is on her, then put the kind of the shirt and whatnot on top of that. Or I can cut down here, I can cut, say, up here completely off and make the plug just on the bottom part of the waist here and just pull the whole top off and not even just worry about that. And I can go into details why I didn't do that with the bang one and why I can do it on this one. That would be, I haven't done it that way, but that would actually save a step later on and actually make it more structurally sound in the next step that we do. Part 3 is we then need to there is a chemical agent we can use to smooth everything out. It will take off all the thumbprints and whatnot that are on here. It won't fix everything. It's kind of like a blur tool on Photoshop, or kind of include that. It won't fix every problem, but at least get like these small kind of thumbprint things and whatnot. We can iron those out pretty effectively. And then part 4 is actually hardening, and I'm not going to do a cutaway during the hardening. You're not going to sit here watching it harden the whole time. I have some special guests here I'm going to bring in, and we're going to explain what does work, what doesn't work with hardening based on past experience, and this, that, and the other. And then at the very end, I have another a kind of short special presentation I'd like to just throw in at the end of this whole thing. So a lot of stuff I want to get done this time, and let's see if we can just get right to it. So first thing we're going to want to do is unwrap this cord, because I've wrapped the cord for this camera around everything, which is super cool. And I'm making sure I'm recording. I am. So we go into, if we're doing the treads, we have our usual, let's make our little snake. Do our little kind of kindergarten, first grade clay modeling little snake guy, because it works, frankly. In fact, I probably should fix the right boot before I go on the left, but whatever. Now I have measured the holes so they match this. If they don't match this 100%, I brought my drill out too. So after hardening, if something needs to be tweaked, we can absolutely tweak that. Okay, so this is going to be the trick, because there's not a whole lot to hang on to during this process. I felt this thing has been so bad for so long, I should at least attempt to put some of this on camera, even if we're not really going to see any of this ever. I mean, it's the bottom of a shoe. Who's ever going to look and know about it? But at the same time, it must be done. So let's do it. Alright, so I'm just kind of re-digging in here. If it's not perfect, again, this I'm not super concerned. If it is, that's cool. That's even better. But if it's not, I'm not going to kill myself over this. Because, yeah, we're never going to actually see any of this, ever. Okay. So that goes in, that comes around. And when I flip this back up again, then I can deal with smoothing out the top part of that shoe. Yeah, this shouldn't take more than just a few minutes to do. Can I just set you in here and make life slightly easier? I can, kind of. This feels very precarious. But it works. Just stick the head in the ground. Bam! Done. Okay, let's grab a piece that's bigger than we need. You're about the size of those. Realize the piece that's bigger than I need is not actually bigger than I need because the feet are longer than I thought. Well, that's cool. Alright, I'm going to bring you around. And you need to go a little bit further in the back. Da-da-da-da. Okay. So that's fine. We have you. I'm not going to be able to cut this into another piece afterwards. Let's just use this whole thing. I can just cut the excess off at the end. So we're going right back to kind of where we were. I think this is on like session 5 or something like that. So might have even been session 4. I forget. It was relatively early on. I believe this is 13 now. I'll find out when I label the numbers on these. But we're actually pretty much 100% in line with where I was on the Bang project. So I believe if you were around when I did the Bang Shishigami one, I believe the hardening was session 12. And this one is slightly higher, but at the same time, we've had some shorter sessions in here. We've had some like the last couple have been like 20-minute ones. So all in all, time-wise, we're kind of where we were before. So, and the benefit is on this one, I still had to do all of Bang's pants after that. Hers are now done, except for some detailing things on like the ammo stuff. So we're a little bit ahead of the game on that front. There will be more, or like I say more, but different extraneous things later on, which may even the two of them up again. But for this initial phase, we're pretty much on point with what I kind of expect, or where I kind of expect to be on this project. So that's a good thing. And even though it's not videotaped, when I did or it hasn't been uploaded, when I did Reign of the Night Witch, which actually I realize I haven't shown during this modeling one. I have shown it a couple times during Bangs, but I haven't shown it during this one. When I did hers, I think hers was like session 11 or something was the first hardening. So we really are kind of in line with everything that I've done before, which is nice. Okay. Now we have a lot of leftover on that, and that is fine. We're going to cut all of that off. And this one should be the last that goes on this side. Okay, let's get some of this easy cut-off stuff done. I do want to kind of push you down a little bit. If I don't push it down a little bit, this will harden as a separate entity, and you'll see an entire line can just break off easily if something hits it weird. So we do still want to actually push these things in, even if it does mean kind of flattening stuff a little bit. It does make a difference. Once again, I'm going to try to bring you back in a little. Or actually what I could do is I could push this down a little more so it kind of flattens a little more like that one is. And maybe that's the play. Okay. So I have that. Let's get you in there. Where is the hole? There's the hole for that one. Okay. So now we have a mess. Let's make this less of a mess. Oop. I also have it so you can't see anything I'm doing, which I don't know is good or not, because I'm not sure this looks great at this point. So maybe it's nice if you don't see when it doesn't look good, but at the same time, you got to see the process. It's all about the process. Again, my whole goal is you understand a process we can use to do this type of stuff. You may or may not be more or less artistically inclined than I am. So if you're making your own, yours may look a whole lot neater than mine do. It's just, again, I'm always trying to progress. You can use more time, less time to do detailing on your own stuff. But as long as I can kind of show a process for doing things, that's, again, kind of what I'm aiming towards. Again, my mind is wired more like an engineer than it is an artist. It's just kind of always been that way. I've done science competitions and whatnot before back in high school. It's where my brain is. I've never taken an art class. I've taken a mandatory art class back in college because I did the architecture, but the art side of things is not necessarily the strong point. It's the problem solving and figuring out why we're doing kind of the moves that we're doing on these things is where I feel stronger on this. So just need to retouch this up a little bit just so we can see where that goes and so that this doesn't look 100% different from one shoe to the other. I think I want to take just a little bit off of the front edge of that. Like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we have a lot of stuff to do, and it's a detail no one's ever going to see. But it still would be nice if it actually, looks good. Okay, so we have that in there. Let's just re-establish this line as it comes down. Okay, we have the back as well. We need to kind of finish out. Can you see it on camera? Yes, we can. All right. I feel like I'm not necessarily great with keeping things on camera, so we're gonna at least make an effort to keep things on camera. Okay, we have treads on the bottom of her shoes, or boots, or whatever they are. And so if we have that stuff, there we go. That was kind of the last of the real detail things. I've done some cleaning up on a number of these areas, so that's going to be fine. I just need to remember to pull the knee pads off before, you know what, I might as well pull the knee pads off right now. Because they're already hardened. And what they are going to do, if they stay in during the next hardening, it is going to block behind the knees there from actually hardening. So it's going to keep the hot air from getting through to that. It's one more layer of stuff to go through. So let's just pull those off right now. And next, we have part 2. Because now we need to prep the top here to get ready to be pulled apart into various pieces. And as I'd said before, I'm pointing this, pull this top off. As I said before, we did the bang model. What I had to do was we cut right around where the belt area was. We hardened the whole thing and then pulled the whole thing off afterwards. And the reason we did it in that order was when I had done the wireframe at the very outset, I had taped this shoulder. There was one wire that came from one shoulder across to the other. I had taped that to the neck. Our leg piece came up and attached this back, and I had taped that to the other. So if I were to cut this and try to separate before hardening, I would squish the entire legs in an attempt to grab hard enough to pull it apart. In this case, we never actually taped the top here to the bottom. I made the slot, I did the whole kind of crazy, give me 1 second. If I had known I was going to need a visual. If you remember from the very first wireframe episode, we had made a loop of wire in the bottom that then this top piece up here slides into, and that was that. We never actually taped one to the other. So there's no physical connection between this and the bottom. So my hope is I can cut this around, and I can just pull the top off and not even have to harden the top. However, we have one more slight detail. In order to reassemble the thing, we reassemble this to look like a plug outlet. You have a male part and you have a female part, and they come together, bam, and it's literally like a plug. So what I think I want to do is carve here, carve up top completely, maybe around this height. Or even I can go, yeah, something like this. We're just going to cut this all off. All of a sudden, everything is going to look a lot worse in the short term. But I'm going to cut this around. Then I'm just going to carve out the male portion of the piece from here. And I can just then use that. And when I do the top again, I can remold it around this, and we'll be fine. It does mean this model will look worse in the short term, but pretty much by next session, we will be ironing that back out, and it's going to be fine. So unfortunately, we need to look a little worse before we can look a little better. It's part of the process. And we are just going to hope this whole thing works out the way I plan. If it doesn't, well, then it doesn't. That's just what it is. But I believe I should be able to pull this out easy enough. Look at that, easy peasy. It's done. Now, if I were to just keep this harden the top and just want to reslide that back down, ultimately what's going to happen is it's going to want to twist around. So if you make kind of more the male-female part on this, that it keeps it from twisting, keeps it from kind of rocking back and forth. It makes it work a lot easier. Plus, I don't need to scale this back to size anymore. I can keep this and I can just turn this into the shirt part. So it's going to save a little bit of time later on. So from here, now we just want to very carefully shave it down. I do still need to cut some of this off. Now, thankfully, the shirt goes actually slightly above the belt, so I don't really need to come in super far on this. But I do need to get something off here. And we're just going to do this kind of little piece at a time until this works. So get ourselves a general kind of plug shape. I'm going to want a little thicker than that, because I don't want to make the shirt too thin around this either. Again, this is kind of a different style. I've never done it quite this way before, so I'm going to learn something from doing it like this. But in theory, this should work fairly well, as long as I can keep this kind of as straight edged as I can here so it becomes an actual plug. So once this gets done, there's still going to be a little bit of touching up, but like I said, this is more work right now, but it will, in theory, save time later on. Plus, it will make it stronger because now this is physically attached to the bottom. It's not glued onto the bottom like the other ones were. Okay, so we have a block going, so we're getting started. So let's see, that's going to be, let's get a little more off of this side. I just want to make sure there's enough shirt going around here to keep the shirt end of it strong and not just this bottom part being strong. We need both halves of this. So volume-wise, I want it to be kind of closer to 50-50. Or as much, or as close to 50-50 here as we can get. But I will say this gives a better chance for having nice straight lines than doing it the way I did it on Bang. Which again, if you want to see how I did his, I believe it was session 12 that I did his. Which actually, I forgot, I'd stuck this on just to show. I did have that just to show you, yeah, when I pulled him apart the one time, I actually did prep some things. When I did pull him apart, you can see he was all taped up in the middle, and that's why that would require, if I were to do that here, I'd have to really wench down on the here, which would destroy the details in the process. So, yeah. Had I taped this one, I 100% would not be doing it this way. It's just, I have created a situation where this does work. Let's go a little more in the back because these corners are a little tight. I just want to make sure I have enough space there, enough space there. Let's do just a little more on the front, and then we'll just make sure we're kind of squared up. Let go, let go, let go. Okay, that was actually kind of painless. Just square things up. That looks pretty okay. I kind of don't want to run a knife right across the top because that's going to kind of pull the clay into that hole, and I would prefer that not to happen. So even if that's not 100% straight and square, that one I'm not as concerned with. It's more a matter of is this straight? Is that straight? And I think this should be okay. This should give me what I want. All right, cool. That was actually relatively painless. That didn't take very long to do at all. So awesome. So next part. Now, I just want to make sure our foot is still not, as you can see, our foot is still technically not resting on the ground. That's ideal. And now we come to smoothing you out. And this, I can now just store the top part to the side for the time being. We will get to you in the next session, not this one. Okay, so now we get to our friend at least what I use, is the mineral spirits. I'm not sure if this is, again, being as I haven't taken art classes or sculpting classes or any of that, I don't know if this is absolutely the right thing, absolutely the wrong thing, whatever it is. For me, this has worked really, really well in the past. We just kind of give a real quick once over with this, just get a brush, and whatever you do, you don't push down into it, you just kind of let it sit there and do its thing. And ultimately, this will take out kind of all your fingerprints, all kind of minor indentations. It won't take your details you want out, but it will take the little stuff that you don't want to have in here out. In effect, just like I said, it works kind of just like a blur tool on any kind of graphic program you may use on your computer. Now, the one thing you don't do is you don't want to push down on this, because if you push down, or if you do, if you're like, oh, I haven't gotten a section well enough, I need to redo it one or two more times just to make sure I get this part because I don't see the glisten. If you do that, you do run the risk of getting individual brush marks over everything. So it's just a real light once over. I'm not pushing this thing in. It's just let it do its thing. If it gets something, that's good. If it doesn't get something, then it just isn't going to happen. At least not via this method. Okay, just kind of make sure I get everything above. I'm just kind of breaking it apart into 3 sections. I have this section that goes above all these kind of pads. And then I'll go one leg, and then I'll go the second leg. As you can see, it's not taking any of these details out. It's just doing the little smoothie thing. Okay, so we got the padding area. Now we get the section between the pads. This part feels like it's taking longer than usual. There's so many more details and stuff to go through, it feels like. That, and for some reason, I'm not seeing the glare of this at all. So I'm just kind of doing it by, I'm hoping I'm hitting every part. And that's that, because, yeah, for this time, I am just not seeing any of this glare that I usually feel like I do. But I'm also not picking up and moving the model around at all in this. The last thing you want to do now is I'm not going to pick this thing up and move it, because now this softens the clay. It's actually kind of liquefies the very, very top layer of the clay. So now if you go to pick it up, forget it. It's now just mush. Now I'm not going to do the portion that I just did underneath the shoe. That's going to be fine. Whatever's going on down there is just going to go on down there. If this decides to sink into my block when I'm hardening, it's just going to sink in there. That's just what it's going to be. I'm not going to try to tempt fate and do anything to deal with that. But all right, so we got that one in. Let's get padding part on the other leg. Now I'm going to keep these hooks kind of going out as far as they can right now. In theory, after this is hardened, I should be able to rotate them in or around or back or whatever, because they're not physically installed in such a way. I mean, they're stapled in, so they should still be rotatable if need be. So I'm just going to keep them out right now. If they move, that should still be fine. It's less fine if they're flopped all the way down, because then I can't hook onto them later. But again, the ammo belt, if I get the ammo stuff on, it's more like a bonus, only because I haven't seen anybody else be able to do it. So it would be kind of par for the course if it doesn't work. But at the same time, I would like to get it done. And I'd be really curious if we can. I'm not going to do that next. I will be doing the shirt stuff next. Because we've been staring at these legs forever now. It would be really, really nice to finally move on with things. Let's be honest. I'd like to see more stuff. I'm sure you would like to see more stuff. And then maybe after the shirt is done, we can start doing one of the detail things. I can either do the ammo belt on the one side, I can do the box on this side, I can make the rifle she's holding on the other. I may pick one of those detail areas and just kind of focus on that next. Then maybe do the arms, then focus on different detail, and maybe go back and forth from detail to not detail type stuff, just to kind of keep it interesting. But yeah, no, we've been staring at the legs for a long time. It's time to move on. And okay, that is that. Let's get that out of the way. We can get you out of the camera range. That's fine. I got you over here. You kind of stay with that. That's cool. Let's move you out. I'm just going to keep the knee pads over there so I know where they are. I have a watch for this, so it's going to be helpful. How about I set a timer on it too? And what I use for hardening is I have one of these rotisseries I got way back when I was in college. This is like a 20-year-old. This is one of those, I believe it's the set it and forget it rotisserie one. You just go, you put your stuff in, it does its thing. That's cool. We have about a 12-inch space from top to bottom. So when I do my hardening, I have like the 1.5-inch block here. So all of my models are roughly 10 inches tall. If you're ever wondering why, this is the reason why they're that tall. I can only fit something so big in here. And so we're going to break this into 2 separate sessions. I'm going to have a longer session. First time in here, it's going to last, I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. I'll probably have it in here for about 4.5 minutes. Then I'm going to turn it around so the other half is facing the heat source in the back. Just come in, that's our heat source. So front's going to be hotter than the back, top is going to be hotter than the bottom. We need to account for that when doing this. So we will be rotating this around once in the middle. So we're going to spend around 4.5 minutes facing the heat source, take it out, flip it, then it's going to be around 2.5 minutes or so on the other side will face the heat source. And for this particular model, this particular size in this particular oven works very well that way. Every single oven you would want to use, I might as well point this way I'm talking. I'm on camera, yes I am. Yeah, so basically any oven you want to use is going to have their own different heat signature on it. Some are going to get hotter, some are cooler. You may have identical ovens, they may have slight different heat indexes inside. So it's a little bit of a trial getting that right, getting the timing right for these things, which I'll go into while this is being hardened. I have examples. But for this particular oven that I'm using, this time frame has repeatedly worked out pretty well. So this is what we're going to be doing. And so when I stick it in, every time I do it, in case something does actually burn, I always have the front side facing the heat source first. I tend to be as far back as I can. And this is the other reason I like taking the top, or I like taking this piece off, because that had a chance of burning up top. This will have very little chance of burning down here. As long as I'm now lower, I'm not right up against the top. This will make life a little less hairy during this step. So we are going to go ahead, and with this I also have gloves that I use because it gets a little toasty. And let's see, we are at that time. So are we ready to go? We are ready to go. So I'm going to set it to 5, and I may pull it out earlier. We'll see. Okay, So while that is doing that, give me 1 second here, and I'm going to get a couple things set up so we can discuss pros and cons and what works, what doesn't work with hardening. Okay, almost there. So, if you've seen Bang, you've seen my Lamisa one. What nobody has ever seen before on any of my videos, even going back to the Night Witch one that wasn't even published, these were technically my first 2 structures or models I'd ever done. I was doing Celis from Final Fantasy VI, and I was doing Mulbrook from La Mulana 2, before I went and ultimately did Lamisa from La Mulana 2. And when it comes to hardening, we have, this is back when I was still using copper wire. I didn't even strip the plastic coating off the copper because I had no idea what I was doing the first time I actually made a model. I was like, I just seen the YouTube video, said, oh, this is easy, I can do this, blah, blah, blah. Well, the first time I had gotten this far, I was like, I should probably, before I go any further, just get this thing going. So I stuck it in, and I didn't harden it enough. And that was fine for like a month or so. It did hang around for a bit. A lot of little kind of details on the straps here fell off, but ultimately what wound up happening is I didn't harden it long enough. And let's get my little pointer here, and you can see the foot has since disintegrated off. There's a break in the foot down here. It's crumbled along that seam, it's crumbled along the middle, it's crumbled along the other leg down here. This one has been slowly falling apart ever since I started it, and it just, if you don't go hard enough, that's one of the risks. If you don't go long enough in there, that is one of the risks you can run on these types of models. Also, it has the copper core, which is softer than the others, so it also helps in making it a little flimsier. But yeah, it didn't go hard enough the first time. Second time, I was going to do Mulbrook from La Mulana 2. I just picked up the game, like, oh, this is going to be awesome. It's something I'm interested in, let's do it. And so I went, I looked at the clay itself. It's like, okay, the 200, I think it's a 250 or 275 degree oven. You need 15 minutes per 1/4 inch of material. And I burned the heck out of her. I put in like, all right, I'm going to follow the instructions. I'm going to do this. I don't know what temperature this gets to be honest. I just know how long things work and how long things don't. But that didn't work too well for Mulbrook. She got absolutely destroyed. And there was no saving. There was smoke coming out. It was a whole 9 yards. She was done. And there's not much more I need to say on that one. So the third attempt I had at doing a model, she still has a copper core, so she's a little flimsy in that regard. But on the third attempt, we have Lamisa here from La Mulana, tongue twister. And this one we actually got a little more right. The pants are a little browner there. If you come in on the chest, on the first layer down there, we started getting a little crispy, but we got it out at time, and from this, we kind of started figuring out the temperature range, or the time range to do things, and it worked. So if you're doing this, if this is going to be your first model that you're doing, and your first time you're hardening something, just be prepared. Maybe have something of a similar size or scale, like one of these guys, in addition to the one you want to keep. You can test on first before doing what you really want to do, or you can just kind of cross your fingers and hope that the temperature profile actually works on it and it's not going to get burned to a crisp in the process. And we are coming up now. Yeah, we're just about there. We're just about 4.5 minutes. I'm a little less concerned on her because she's not super high to the top that it's going to burn. But this is pretty much where I usually kind of start to call it. So we're going to hit off on that. I'm going to reset my watch. Pop this, turn you around. And just for fun, because one of the things we kind of sometimes lose track of during these projects is why are we doing these things in the first place? So I'm going to come back. We're going to set you, I'm going to just set it to 4. It's not going to need all that. And I'm just going to go through a trailer from the game itself. This is, again, I have the time. It's actually going to wind up being the exact time we need. So I just go and sit back and enjoy the game.
The day our hometown burned, that was the day we enlisted. At last, we had something to believe in, something worth fighting for. None of us yet knew, we couldn't foresee what this war would cost us. It was a battlefield, but it was where we grew up.
All right, and with that, we are done. Well, I'm going to give it the full 3 minutes, then we're done. I have 8 more seconds. We're close to done. 2, 1, stop. Okay. Okay, that is toasty, toasty, toasty. And there we have it. So now the one downside with this being hardened is if we liked that kind of sheen it was having before, it's now a much duller, it will be a much duller sheen when this comes through and actually hardens. So effectively what we did soften this up slightly for the short term. If you want to cut this, as I did before, now would be the time to cut it because it's actually still very soft. But once this starts to cool off, the crystalline structure will change. It will then harden into, it will then be the hardened that we want it to be. So yeah, so that's where we are right now. And okay, time-wise that wasn't too bad for this session. And next time we will finally move on to something that's not pants or legs. It's gonna be great. So like I said, next time we're gonna come, I now need to repack this bottom here, the bottom of the shirt part to kind of go around here, and we're going to start making the shirt. And the next focus, now that this is done, is going to be got the shirt. She has the chest plate that goes on, she has the straps that goes around, she has the knife that goes on. We're going to get all this upper body stuff finished, and then after that, we can either do the head, we can do the arms, we can do some of the detailing, we can do the rifle. After that, we have the sky's the limit on where we want to start. But really, the shirt and the core has to be the next step done, and then that's the gateway to everything else. So, yep, that's where we are. And while I'm here, we can do a quick little rotate around. That is what we are good at. All right. And with that done, until next time, enjoy.